Hey friends, it's Dimitri with Bashka Streetwear. Today I want to talk about 3 important items that you need on your product listing, your product page. So let's say that you have a t-shirt that you're trying to sell on your website and a customer, a potential customer, they click on it. What should they see? Well, obviously they're going to see a photo on there, but what else should they see? Well, they should really see a really clear description, a size guide, a really clear photo, other additional photos of the product. Those are the 3 main things that they should see, and I'm going to go into depth about why that's important. So the first thing about this concept is ambiguity. Hopefully I spelled that right. So if you're missing those key things in your product listing, then that means that the customer is going to have ambiguity. They're going to be basically stressed out / unsure. Maybe they see the photo and they kind of like the design and stuff like that, but really you don't have a good product listing. It doesn't look professional. That will cause them to be unsure about whether or not they could buy your product, and that they would think that they can't trust you, essentially. And that's what it comes down to. After this point, they will lose trust. That is how products are sold to customers. You have to gain the customer's trust enough so that they will make a purchase, they'll wait for the item, and it gets delivered to them, right? And if you maintain that trust and they have a good product that they like, they can potentially become a lifetime customer, a repeat customer, and that's really what you want to get. So if you do not have a good product listing, your customer is going to have ambiguity. It's going to stress them out. They're going to be unsure whether or not they could trust you, whether or not this is a good product for them to buy. In this day and age, there's so many scam pages. There's people that do not deliver. There's people that do really stupid drop shipping websites where customers wait months and months and months, which is essentially a scam in a way, right? If you buy something and in normal circumstances, you would expect it to be delivered within a reasonable time frame. If it's not delivered within a reasonable time frame, or a time frame that the customer knows it's going to be delivered, there's certain situations like when COVID happened, some companies had really long back orders, but that was made known to the customer. I remember we purchased a really nice coffee machine, but it took like 7 months to get to us. But my wife and I, when we did that, we were certain of that because the company told us that that was expected, and we're like, okay, we're gonna wait for this machine because of the situation right now, right? So that is something that you definitely want to adhere to, right? Getting stuff out. And if they're not sure about it, then they're going to distrust your brand, your company, which means lost sales. It's already difficult enough to get customers to your website. Now, if you lead them through this process, you're going to lose them, right? So they went through that whole process just for you to lose them because you didn't have a good product listing. So here are the 3 main things for your product listing. The first one is a great photograph. Great photo of the product. You don't want it to be super grainy. You don't want it to be blurry. You don't want all this crap in the background. You either want a really clean, crisp background. It does not have to be pure white. So let me write down clean background or pure white. A lot of clothing pages, mine included, I do pure white backgrounds, but on another page on my website, like the bunker page where I post more of the vintage stuff, books and stuff like that I find, those I just take them in the photo room. They don't have a pure white background. It's not necessary for me because most 99% of the items in there are one-off items and they get cycled through each day. Actually, there's stuff that's coming and going from that website, or from that section on my website. And there's also companies, they do colored backgrounds, like they have really soft like earth tones for their backgrounds. They don't use pure white. I've seen brand pages where they put it on a really cool background like grass or concrete or something like that, and it's actually part of their aesthetic. But yeah, you do want a good looking background. You do want pure white, as clear as possible. So what I mean by that is when you take the actual photo, use the best camera that you have available. You might only have your iPhone or Android or whatever available to take photos at the time when you're starting. I don't know your situation. If you do have a DSLR camera or access to one, I would recommend that. So that way you can get really clear, crisp images of your shot, of your product. And that way, the entire point of that is that it's one of the strongest visual components for the customer to see what they're actually buying. So obviously it's the strongest visual. Now, the second thing with your product listing, it's not really as visual, it's more descriptive. So once the customer sees the item, now they're gonna go into more depth. It's basically like a funnel, right? They see the product, now they're gonna read about it, and then they're gonna get additional information about it as well. So your description is the next important thing for your product listing. So what do you need in your description? You need several things that are super important, and this list can get longer and longer and longer depending how descriptive you want it to be, but generally you want to write the material, so what it's made out of. This is super, super important. So for instance, with t-shirts, if you have a 100% cotton t-shirt, the customer, some people are actually really picky about that. Some people know like, oh, if I get a cotton t-shirt, it's gonna shrink, it's gonna settle a little bit. Even if you have a pre-shrunk cotton t-shirt, they're always gonna settle a little bit. So that's important information to know. I know specifically for me, sometimes I can vary between a large and an extra large. And if I get a cotton t-shirt, I might opt in to get the extra large because I know that once I wash it, if it's a cotton t-shirt, it's gonna set a little bit. Now there's also blends with polyester in them. Some people, they might be against that for religious purposes. They might be against that for environmental purposes because polyester is plastic, and there's kind of a movement that's growing right now where people are opting not to get polyester or shirts with polyester in them. So that's important. And generally 100% cotton is always comfier. It's more sustainable. So people like that. So putting that in your description is super, super important. The other thing that you want to put in is the color. So some people, they might not be able to see, they might have a screen on their computer that's not quite calibrated right. They might be a little bit visually impaired. They might not be able to see certain colors as well. This is especially true, like let's say that you have a black t-shirt and a really dark navy t-shirt. It's very important that you write in the description the color of the t-shirt so people know exactly what they're getting. Even some of the stuff I sell here, I have, like, it's totally true. I have sweatpants that are black, and then I also have sweatpants that are navy blue, and the navy blue ones are really, really dark. They're pretty close to black. If you saw them from 5 feet away in a bag, you would not be able to tell the difference. So it's very important that you write the color down. Another thing that you should add in your description is supporting details. What I mean by this, so for instance, for a t-shirt, that would be the print method. This one is super important specifically for t-shirts or hoodies and stuff like that. So is your shirt screen printed? Is it sublimation? Is it DTG? Is it a heat press? Stuff like that. That way the customer knows exactly what they're buying. If I was buying a t-shirt online and it was not printed with screen printing ink or discharge ink, I would not be interested in buying that because I know, like, for instance, a heat press, that kind of stuff doesn't look as good. It can often peel. It doesn't really stand out as much as a screen print or discharge or something like that. So having supporting details that are important to the product that you're selling is super important, specifically with t-shirts, the method of printing and stuff like that. Other supporting details could be, is it pre-shrunk? Is it oversized? Etc. So this is what I mean by you can keep adding and adding stuff that's in what is relevant to the product that you're selling. I know for t-shirts, there's only so much stuff that you really need to write on there. Another detail that's important is origin, or some kind of manufacturing detail. So some people, they are kind of conscientious objectors to where clothes are made. Some people, they want to know if their clothes are ethically made. Some people, they might be more like patriotic and they are like dead set on getting stuff made in the United States. Some people might not care, but definitely have something included about the manufacturing. I just like to write that it's printed or embroidered in the USA, and then on the tag it says additional information. I have stuff that's made in Mexico, I have stuff made in the United States, I have stuff made in Pakistan, all over the place. I don't really have like one specific area where my stuff is made, but I do like to write that it's printed in the United States. So, there's some component of local manufacturing involved in that. And like I said, you can keep going on and on about this, but the most important thing that I would say is these four. You want to have something along the lines of this. The material one is like kind of, I would say, the most important. So make sure that you write the material on it. The last thing that you want for your product listing, and this one is super important, that's your size guide. If you do not have a size guide, you're essentially putting the customer through all this crap, and then they're going to be like, oh man, what size do I get? I don't even know what size to get, right? Because this is a digital store. They're entering into a digital space. They're not entering into a physical store. They can't try on your t-shirts, right? You have to include a size guide. Maybe when you start your first size guide, it's not the best. I remember I went through several iterations to make a size guide. But this is super important. You have to include a size guide. Ways to make your size guide better would be to include a visual. So on my website, and you can go look at this, I made a size guide where I have an image of the t-shirt or the hoodie, and it shows exactly where it's being measured from. So one measurement is from the collar to the hem. Another one is this way from the armpit to armpit. So a customer can physically go and get out a tape measure or ruler. They can measure a t-shirt that they already have that they like and see how it compares to mine. And this will give them more trust in the purchase because they know what they are getting themselves into, right? Another thing that you can include in your size guide that's really helpful is centimeters and inches. Those are basically the 2 units of measurement for clothing that are used around the world. So obviously in the United States, we use inches here, but everywhere else around the world, they use centimeters. So include those 2 things. I have it in my size guide. When I made a switch to having both, I did see a uptick in sales, and I did see a downturn in emails asking about sizes, right? And this is kind of the biggest thing about this. No customer emails. So maybe in your head right now, you're like, oh man, but isn't that bad? Don't you want customers inquiring? No, you don't. You want your website set up in a way so that a customer gets all the information that they need and they don't need to bug you, right? You don't want to be playing a game of cat and mouse and drawing all these lines, connecting all the dots with your customer. You don't need to do that. That's a waste of time for them and for you. They should be able to get through this whole process and know exactly what they're getting, when it's coming, what material, what size, and all that kind of stuff. And once it arrives to their door, If all of that was true, then they'll be a happier customer and they'll be a repeat customer, right? That's super, super important. Another thing that you could do for a size guide is you can do comparison tees. So I've seen this before. Some websites do this. A couple popular t-shirts that a lot of people wear are Champion t-shirts, Gildan t-shirts, Supreme tees if you're in the streetwear market and you're kind of marketing towards a more affluent market where, you know, Supreme tees often cost more. If you have a direct picture size comparison of your t-shirt on top of another one of those really popular brand t-shirts, that's also a very strong visual indicator of what the customer can expect to get, and that's also can be very helpful. You can also even write a little blurb that says this t-shirt fits comparable to a Gildan, a Supreme t-shirt, etc. So that's definitely something that you can do that could be very, very helpful. So in conclusion, these three are the most important items that you need on your product page. You need a great photo, you need a good description, and you definitely need a size guide. The reason why I'm making this video is because I've seen people that have clothing brands and they literally do not have like 2 out of the 3 of these things. They might have like a mediocre photo, and I mean, not even 2 out of 3. They don't really even have 3 out of 3. The photo is mediocre. They do not have a description whatsoever. They do not have a size guide. So maybe you are in the situation where you're just like on your computer, like, man, why am I not getting sales? This shirt is so cool. All my friends have said it's cool. People on the street ask me about it. Yeah, maybe it's because you don't have this stuff. Maybe it's because I'm sorry to say, but you're brain dead and lazy. You're not putting in the information that you need to do for this, you know? And maybe some of you are like, oh man, but isn't this kind of common sense? Not really. There's some brands that they just don't do this, right? They're not filling in the details. They're causing a lot of ambiguity with the customer, which is stressing them out. They're unsure about it. And then there's this distrust and the lost sales. So yeah, hopefully you guys got some value out of this video. Hopefully this is a good learning lesson for you guys. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks.